You've never hired me before, and I've been around
for ages and ages. You've been around for a long, long time and never wanted anything from you.
Welcome back. Today I want to talk about Fear Factory. When I was a little kid, I was already aware of Fear Factory. In the late 90s, early 2000s, they appeared in a few games that I played back in the day. For example, Carmageddon. Messiah. And one of the test drive games, I can't remember which one it was. I heard it and I was like, yeah, this is cool, this is solid. And at the time, that was kind of as far as it went. I didn't go exploring into them because of it or anything. I was just aware that they were around at the time and, you know, quite popular. That's kind of as far as my interest went at the time. I've always known about Fear Factory. I've always known they've existed, but they never gripped me in any significant way, and I cannot explain why. We're going to get into why that is weird. I've been aware of them for like 30 years pretty much. Up until very recently, they never really gripped me. A little while ago, a few months ago, I started listening to them sort of for research, but also because I knew I liked them and I never really had properly listened to them in any meaningful way. And so I started listening to them in the gym. At that time, I was like, I don't know Fear Factory in depth, but I know for a fact that they'll make good gym music. It's very straightforward and heavy, not too much to think about. As far as I was aware, you know, there's not going to be many ballads or anything, no skippers. It seemed like the logical choice. Listen to Fear Factory. And so I did. The album I started with was Digimortal. You know, sometimes I'll listen to an album by a band that I don't know very well and go, yeah, that's cool. And then that's kind of as far as it goes. I did this recently with Edema, maybe 6 months ago or so. I listened to a couple of their albums in the gym, and basically it was like, yeah, it never gripped me before, but now it still doesn't grip me, so at least now I know, right? In my mind, if they haven't gripped me up until now, there's a good reason why. However, the more I listened to Digimortal, the more it started to grow on me.
Hey, support channel, like and subscribe. Support and become member. Or support on Buy Me Coffee and PayPal. Thank you.
So I was listening to Digimortal more and more, and then I was like, I know they've been pretty active for the last 30 years, so I'm going to start listening to their newer stuff. And so I started listening to Mechanize, the Industrialist, Genexus and Agression Continuum. I must say, considering the depth into their career that they are at this point, they're really good. Genexus in particular, for some reason, there's something really compelling about that album to me. It's really catchy, and I've said for a long time on this channel that if you can write a song that the listener can identify within the first few seconds of the song, then that's a well-written song, essentially. And I feel like on Genexus, they really started doing that. Like, even though I've been listening to this album for, I mean, it's been more and more recently, but the last couple of months, I already know these songs. I can already tell which song it is just by listening to the first few seconds. One thing I think that not put me off as such, but didn't draw me in, I guess, was in my mind they were quite samey. And I think to a casual listener that is fair to say. They haven't really evolved much from when they started out. Syncopated guitar riffs, syncopated drums, very aggressive, upbeat. There's not much room for experimentation in Fear Factory, I don't think. So that kind of put me off. And again, in the same way, like if I didn't appreciate it 20 years ago or 25 years ago, then I probably won't appreciate it now. And that is generally true with me, but this time I was so wrong, and it's very strange. So after listening to them for a while, a few months in the gym, it just all of a sudden clicked. And I'm like, oh, I get it now. It was like a ramp like this for so many years, decades in fact, and then all of a sudden it just went like this, and now I'm like a big Fear Factory fan. I've never really had that experience before, where after so many years I'm suddenly like, oh, I get it now. You know, it might take a little while, but 20, 30 years? That's never happened before, and I really cannot explain it. It's also a weird time for me to get into them, considering Burton's gone, so it's not really Fear Factory anymore. The only remaining member is Dino. It's almost like a Fear Factory tribute band, but you know, that's the same with a lot of bands. The fact of the matter is that the members that have come and gone have morphed themselves into the Fear Factory sound, and I like it. I think a reason why I sort of dismissed Fear Factory for a long time is because I'm a massive Meshuggah fan. Which might sound kind of confusing, but in my mind, in the past, and kind of still now, Fear Factory is like a simplified Meshuggah. You know, Meshuggah is very complex and technical, and it's a lot to concentrate on sometimes. You know, it's great, I love Meshuggah, one of my top 10 bands of all time. But sometimes you want something that's heavy but not so complex, I think, is the simplest way I can put it. Imagine your life taken from you! And particularly in the gym, I mean, I do listen to Meshuggah in the gym, but in the gym I want sort of background noise that is intense. There's not too much to think about, you know? And I think that's why Digimortal started working for me, because I'm like, this is sort of Meshuggah-ish, but it's not... I'm not having to focus so much on polyrhythms and stuff, you know? Like, that was why I'm like, if Meshuggah sounds similar but better, then I don't need Fear Factory. I think that was my logic for a long time, because there's an undeniable similarity. Everything you've ever known is coming to an end. However, Fear Factory do have something that Meshuggah does not, which is epic melodic choruses. And I do like Fear Factory's choruses, I always have. I must have listened to Demanufacture back in the day, way back in the day, because anytime I listen to it now I get a lot of nostalgia for it, even though I haven't consciously listened to it. I mean, I have recently. For a long time I never really listened to it, but it's still, you know, it's still in there. So my point is that the choruses in Demanufacture are still like lodged in my brain, and every time I hear them it releases dopamine, you know. And for all of Meshuggah's excellence, that is something that they like. They've always liked. They've never really had melodic choruses as such. There's never really been singing in Meshuggah's music. But sometimes I do want something that's a bit of a step down, I guess, from the intensity of Meshuggah, without me knowing. Fear Factory fills that void. This is why it's weird that I've never really properly appreciated Fear Factory, despite being aware of them for a long time. Here's a tick box of things that I look for in music. Great production. Tick. 7-string guitars. Tick. Groove. Tick. Industrial elements. Tick. Synths. Tick. Weird sci-fi themes. Another tick. Great music for mosh pits. Another tick. No guitar solos, or from what I've discovered, very minimal guitar solos. Another tick. As a bonus thing, they also made an electronic remix album. I do like electronic music quite a lot, as some of you will know, and so that tells me that they do as well. They must do. Or at least they used to. And so that's just an extra little layer of Fear Factory that, again, Meshuggah doesn't have that. Meshuggah's much more purist, I think. So there's loads of scenarios in which I would listen to Fear Factory. Like I've already said, in the gym. I've discovered they're one of my favourite gym bands now. Cycling, while I'm at work, it will make great party music as well, in a certain kind of party, of course. Whereas something more complex and aggravating, I think would put a lot of people off. But I think for normie metalheads, Fear Factory is pretty heavy. I mean, it is pretty heavy, but it's not incomprehensible. You know, it's very 4/4, very straight to the point. Like I said, not too much experimentation or weird stuff. Here's the thing. I can see easily Fear Factory being like a stepping stone band from someone who doesn't listen to metal to hearing Fear Factory and going, oh, this is heavy, but it's not off-puttingly heavy. And then after a while, you know, they'll move on to stuff that is properly heavy. And I think because I've listened to stuff that is way heavier than Fear Factory for quite a long time, I'm like, I don't need a stepping stone band, you know? Having said that, I would see something like early Linkin Park or Korn even to be a stepping stone band as well, and I listen to those bands quite a lot, as some of you will know. And there's also certain elements of Fear Factory that tickle my brain in the same way that Korn's music does, because of the 7-string guitars, I would assume. There's so many comparisons to other bands I enjoy. There's the Meshuggah thing, I've already gone over. Korn. The synth stuff reminds me of something like Orgy or something. I'm not saying it sounds like Orgy, but there's that sort of sci-fi element to it. There's so much about Fear Factory that just screams my taste in music. And this is why I say it's so weird that I never got into them properly until now. And I'm very thankful that I have. I just feel like I'm very, very late to the party. While I have been listening to Fear Factory a lot quite recently, and like I said, there are some albums that I know I've listened to many, many times. Some that I haven't yet listened to. I don't think I've heard Transgression. I might have heard Archetype, but I've definitely never heard Soul of a New Machine, their first one in '92. I'm pretty certain I've not heard that. So there's still more for me to discover, and I'm not gonna listen to those albums just yet, because I'm really appreciating the last 4 albums. I just keep like bouncing from one to the other, but Genexus and Aggression Continuum, I think, are my 2 favorites from what I know. Nostalgia aside, you know, there's probably going to be Fear Factory fans watching this that have a lot of nostalgia for the older albums. I do, but only because it was around at the time, not because I listened to it over and over again compulsively, you know. I'm looking at this quite objectively, and again, like talking about the great production and the 7-string guitars and the syncopation and the groove and the industrial stuff, all that is like exactly my kind of music. The more I listen to it, the more I'm like, how did this take so long to click with me? Cutting me apart! I think it's just because I'm a bit of an idiot. Cutting me apart! Cutting me apart! I was using the logic that I said before, where, you know, if I haven't gotten into them up until this point, then I'm probably not missing anything. And that makes me wonder, how many other bands out there have I had that attitude towards that I should try to get into? Because again, I wasn't really trying to get into Fear Factory, I really wasn't. It was just sort of filling in the blanks in my knowledge, I guess. But then realizing, actually, I do really, really like this band. No, you can't! And so, talking of the fact that Burton is gone, and their whole breakup thing was quite public and quite ugly from what little I understand, I do find it quite fascinating that the guy they've got to replace him, Milo, sounds so uncannily like him, at least in a live setting. I watched this live show from 2025, and this was a while ago when I watched it, months ago, and I was watching it, and I was going, the vocalist looks really young, considering like this how long this band has been going for. And then I went on my phone and I'm like, oh, this isn't the original singer. You know, I know who Burton is, and like in the deep recesses of my mind, I know who he is and what he looks like, but it just didn't register at the time. I think that's because the guy sounds so similar. So my brain just accepted it, I guess. And I think that's exactly what they want to happen. You know, they want more casual fans or people that don't know Fear Factory very well to just walk into the gig and go, yeah, this is great. It's like being in the early 2000s or something, not knowing that this isn't the original singer. And I noticed that Milo has the brain with a spine thing on it from Obsolete on his arm. So he's clearly a big fan. And now he's in a band that he has the tattoo of. Like, he's replaced the vocalist of the band that made the album that he has a tattoo of on his arm. What a crazy thing to happen to someone. I'm very happy for him. And yeah, he sounds great. If they're going to release more music, it's currently the 23rd of February 2026. No idea if they're making any new music. I'm still catching up with what they've already made, so I don't want any more right now. But if they do release something, I will be checking it out for sure. I just read something interesting. Dino said that he developed a really good technique with palm muting, stopping and starting with my palm and creating a certain accent just by palm muting. I guess what people would call the gent sound now. But apparently his use of staccato riffing predates that of Martin Hagstrom of Meshuggah. So that's interesting. Could it be possible that Meshuggah ripped off Fear Factory? Ooh, I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, by all means, let me know in the comments if that's the case, because I'm not going to sit here and read Wikipedia while I'm talking to you. I am all ears for any tidbits or random bits of information about this band, because I will absorb it and it will stay in my mind, because I'm a sad music nerd that just remembers random stuff like this. I haven't really much else on this topic, other than I get it now. It's finally clicked, and I feel like a fool that I never got into this band before. It's interesting how these things can happen, like the clip I put at the beginning. Been around for a long, long time, didn't want anything from them. Now all of a sudden, I've been listening to them for like 2 weeks straight, and only like 6 albums, like on rotation, constantly. Thank you for watching. If you're new to the channel, then consider subscribing, and if you're already subscribed, thank you for being here. That's it, nothing more to say. I've still not thought of how to end videos yet, so I'm just gonna say, go away.